হ্যালো, আসসালামু আলাইকুম শ্রোতা বন্ধুরা, আশা করি আপনারা সবাই ভালো আছেন, সুস্থ আছেন। আর ইকরা বাংলার মা আমার মা প্রোগ্রামে আমাদের সাথে আছেন। আমি হাফসা ইসলাম চলে আসছি আপনাদের সাথে অনেক দিন পরে, তাই না? আশা করি সবাই ঈদ খুব এনজয় করেছেন। কুরবানি ঈদ, অনেক বেশি বেশি কুরবানির মাংস খেয়েছেন। আর সবাইকে আশা করি যে সবাইকে দিয়ে খাবারটা খেয়েছেন, কারণ এই কুরবানি মানে ত্যাগের ব্যাপার, তাই না? তো আজকে কিন্তু আমার সাথে একজন গেস্ট নিয়ে আসছি, প্রতিবারই কিন্তু গেস্ট থাকেন। তো আজকে আমার সাথে একজন মাকে নিয়ে আসছি, যিনি একজন টিচার, একটা স্কুলের, উনি হেড টিচার। তো ওনার সাথে আমরা কথা বলবো। ওনার নাম হলো মেহরুন হামিদ। আসসালামু আলাইকুম আপা, হাউ আর ইউ?
ওয়ালাইকুম আসসালাম, আলহামদুলিল্লাহ ঠিক আছে।
ঠিক আছেন আপনি? তো আপনি যদি, আমরা শ্রোতারা তো আপনার বালাখরি জানরা না, আপনি আপনার কথা যদি কিছু কইন যে আপনি কিতা করেন, তারপরে কি আমরা ওনটাকে যে করলাম আর কি।
ইনশাআল্লাহ। তো আমার নাম তো হুসেন মেহরুন হামিদ। আমি হেড টিচার ইসলামিক স্কুলে, ইলফাডো এইপেক্স প্রাইমারি স্কুলে হেড টিচার। কেন কাম করাম 2009 থেকে ইনশাআল্লাহ। আর আমি মা, আমার 2 ফুয়া, আর আমি দাদিও সো
মাশাআল্লাহ।
ইনশাআল্লাহ। আর আর কি তাও হইতাম তো খামুইও করাম আলহামদুলিল্লাহ, কিন্তু কোচিংও করি ইনশাআল্লাহ। তো আরও মানে বেটি লোক তারা আর কি একটু হেল্প করি, খানো দরকার লাগে ইনশাআল্লাহ।
As you are a head teacher, how did you become a teacher? Being a mother, and it's a lot of hard work, and then coming to a position that's very demanding role to play, being head teacher for a school. So how do you feel about the whole thing, and how do you go on about it?
So I became a teacher actually in the year 2000, so it's been a long time. I think when I decided to go into teaching, my oldest son was 2 years old. It was quite difficult, and I decided to do a PGCE, which is a very, very demanding course. I think in hindsight, I would probably say anyone who can do it when they don't have commitments, it's probably the best way to do it. So it was quite challenging. There was a lot of sacrifice that had to be made. And a lot of times I felt guilty because I had to put my son into day nursery. But alhamdulillah, I mean, I did have my family around, my mom, my brothers, sisters. They all helped with regards to looking after him. It was demanding. I think my intention was that I would finish my PGCE and then I would take a break and just spend a bit more time with him. But Allah had other plans, and I went straight into teaching straight after that, and I worked full time all the way. I think it was difficult for my son having a mum who's full-time. People often think when you go into teaching that it's a good profession for children.
It starts from 9 o'clock till 3 o'clock when the children finishes their school. The mother goes home with the child.
Yes,
that's how they feel.
That's how people think.
But it's not.
It's not like that. I used to go in sometimes like 7:30 in the morning. I'd have to leave him. Somebody else would have to drop him to school because he wasn't in the same school. But initially, when I started working, he was in the same school as me, so I would take him along with me. So you can imagine, I'd wake up early.
But it would be a really long day for the child.
It was a very long day. And then I'd have staff meetings sometimes, and he'd have to stay back as well. So it was long. He, I think, just got used to that all the way until I had my second child. Quite a long while later, I think 8.5 years later, I had my second child.
What was the reason to have a second child later stage rather than, some people, they have it straightforward, straight away.
Yeah.
Because then they can play together, they become like mates.
Yes.
But having that gap.
It wasn't intentional or anything. It was just, I started working, and yeah, it came to a point, I think, later on where I thought, you know what, my son was getting older and it wouldn't be nice to have, you know, another sibling. Yeah, so I guess that was, you know, the decision at that time. It was a long while later, and it felt like going into motherhood all over again, like a new mum.
It happens.
Yeah, like, you know, in the hospital.
That's the disadvantage of having long-term
Yes,
gap
yes.
between each child.
Yes.
You forget things, the feelings, the whole thing
Yes.
of notion of being a mother.
Yes.
Because the child is grown up. Certain age they go and you think, oh, they've grown up. And then having another child 8
Yes.
years, 9 years later, you feel, oh my God, what do I do with this child?
I
And
did.
your body changes as well.
Energy levels, you know,
Exactly.
things that I would be able to do with my older son, I felt like it was more demanding, more of a challenge trying to do it with my younger son. But I decided to take a different stance with the younger one. I wanted him to, you know, things that I had gone through with my older son, some things were great, alhamdulillah. Other things I thought I would do differently. And so I guess I had that chance to be able to do things differently.
And honestly speaking, it's true because when we have first child, we don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of things you want to explore, but sometimes you can't because you don't know how to go on about it. But with your second child, third child, you do more of the things that you miss out on with the first one. Or it could be the other way around. With your first child,
Yes.
you're more excited. You want to do a lot of things with them, and you have the energy level that you were saying. But once certain age passes by, having the child and the long gap, it kind of reduces your energy level. And you, although you want to do a lot of things with them, but you can't.
Yes, I think I did find that. But I think the thing is that I'm generally quite energetic anyway, and I try to sort of keep my energy levels up. But it was learning other things in terms of like schooling choices, and those were quite important things that I learnt with my first one that I thought, you know what, I would love to do differently with my second one. And for example, sending him to an Islamic school. With my first son, in all honesty, there wasn't, where I was living, there wasn't very many Islamic schools around. So I would never have thought of that. With the second one, I decided that's what I would do. And so that was actually how I came into the Islamic school. So he came along with me, I came along, he was in nursery, I was a teacher there. And I've been there ever since. He's grown up and left, but I'm still there.
Okay.
So.
You know, let's go into that young child, pregnancy time kind of era. When a woman becomes pregnant, everybody expects that that woman should know everything. The motherhood should come naturally.
Yes.
Was that for you?
Oh, I think with my first son, it was exciting, but no, I guess it didn't come naturally. But you do feel, you know, affection, you know, straight away. That happens, yeah. But knowing what to do, how to do it, and everything else. I mean, I was doing a lot of reading before that, trying to find out, and in fact, when I was pregnant with my first son, I was also finishing off my degree. So I was studying at the same time, and so my mind was quite preoccupied with, you know, quite a lot of things. And so when he came along, I just finished my last exams.
Okay.
And then he came along, alhamdulillah, it was, you know, good. He was generally a good child, you know, very energetic.
How good is he academically?
My
Because
first son,
saying,
yes,
একজন মা বা যখন গর্ভবস্থায় তখন বাচ্চারে লইয়ে যেভাবে তাই চিন্তা ভাবনা করবে বাচ্চা কিন্তু ওই রকম হয় if they suffer depression
Right.
বাচ্চা will be suffered
Absolutely.
if they suffer if they are excited if they are energetic the child will be energetic
Yes.
if the mother is studying like yourself you said that's why I asked a question that as you were studying at that time so the child should be already brain box coming up.
Sometimes people think that. I mean, the thing is, yes, I was studying at the time, but there was a lot of pressures as well, trying to juggle studying, pregnancy, and all of that. So, but alhamdulillah,
it's not that easy either.
no, it's not.
Did you have morning sickness?
I
and
had all
that?
of that. Oh
Yeah.
yes, I had all of that. I had leg cramps, and I remember going to university and walking, limping, and my leg would be cramping up. So it was difficult. Alhamdulillah, I mean, he's alhamdulillah, he's very studious, very different from me actually. I'm sort of very much last minute, I work last minute. He's not. The older one, he's,
We'll come to that.
Yeah.
So we're going to
Okay.
a small break.
Very nice.
And শ্রোতা বন্ধুরা আমরা যাচ্ছি একটু ছোট্ট বিরতিতে, বিরতির পরে আবার আসবো, যাবেন না কোথাও। শ্রোতা বন্ধুরা, ফিরে আসলাম ছোট্ট একটা বিরতির পর। আমার সাথে আছেন মেহরুন হামিদ, উনি একজন স্কুলের টিচার। তো শুধু টিচার না, উনি একজন হেড টিচার স্কুলের। দেখতে পাচ্ছেন উনি অনেক ইয়াং, কিন্তু তারপর হেড টিচার। তো আপা, বিফোর উই ওয়েন্ট টু দি ব্রেক, ইউ ওয়ার সেইং অ্যাবাউট ইউর সান, তার behavior, the way he is. So if you compare your son, older one, with the younger one, how different are they?
They are like night and day, actually. They're very
Okay.
different. And sometimes I sit down and try and think, you know, why are they so different? Which is so true. Because I look at my two sons and I think, okay, you know, they've, had similar childhood, and yet they're so different. My older one, I would say, is a lot more studious.
Okay.
He's learnt to self-discipline and, all of that. And, alhamdulillah, doing well. He's gone into medicine.
I think the eldest one are studious, most of
Usually,
them.
yeah. I think
because I have
perhaps.
realized with my elder daughter, she's like that. She's more
okay.
disciplined. She
Yes.
knows what she wants
Yes.
In her
Yes.
life. She's accurate about whatever she wants to achieve.
Yes.
Timekeeping with
Yes.
her work, সব কিছু.
Yes.
But when it comes to the younger ones, they're all over the place. You don't know what to do with these lot.
I know. Yeah, my younger one, yes, he's very different, carefree. Just, no responsibility. Just like, don't worry, it'll happen. And
Yet it's good.
It is. I think we do need to do that. I think one of the things is that sometimes as parents we make the mistake and we think, oh, I used to be like this and I used to do things like this, why aren't you like that?
Yeah.
And we tend to compare our childhood with our children. The thing is that they're in completely different times.
Of course.
Generations are completely different. And
Well, you cannot just compare yourself with that child.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, my daughter, between my eldest daughter and my younger one, they're 15 years age gap.
yes.
Right? So
Big difference.
it's a big
So much has
1.5 generation
Yes,
gap.
yes.
Right? So I cannot compare with my elder one to the younger one. Well, I did, and I do even now when I think about it. But still, my daughter goes to me, Amu, you can't do that. Because আজকালকার বাচ্চা কিন্তু অনেক change, অনেক different, more demanding than how they were before.
But I think a lot of that, though, is you have to also look at time has changed.
Yeah.
The challenges that children have now are so much more, I think, than it was when we were growing up.
Of course.
You've got social media, environment that they're in, the devices that are out there. It's very challenging, and even the whole education system has changed. A lot more demanding now than it was when we were growing up. So
our time was much more relaxed.
Yes.
Studying.
Yes. And the thing
although
is that
we had to do the homework, we were asked to do the homework and all that.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't like the way now. There was so much work to do.
Yes. So much work, and also, when I went to university, there were no university fees. So that's back then. There were no university fees. Now there's university fees. So, youngsters don't have that liberty to be able to think that, oh, you know what, I'm just going to go and do this course and just try it out. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, I'll change over.
True.
No, it's going to cost you, 9,000 minimum to do that. And so they don't have that freedom to be able to do that. Whereas in my time, that's what people did. I know friends who've gone into courses and they thought, I don't like this one, change over, do something else. And it didn't cost them anything. But they had the freedom to be able to choose and try out different things. Because it's very difficult to know, very early on in life what you want to become and where you want to go.
True. Some people, even though they completed their degree, still they don't know where they're going.
No, exactly. So I think it's a lot more demanding now. And so, I guess it's probably as a consequence of that, you're going to have children growing up in, different times, so different outcomes, different results. So yeah, they are very different. But, yeah, so many things I love about my younger one, different from the older one.
I think he's much more challenging and keep you busy.
He keeps
Keep you entertained as well at the same
He does
time.
keep us busy and entertained, yes. But you know, he's also very, you know, he's very intelligent. He knows what he wants to do. He does know that. It's just, I think he's just taking his time in terms of finding. He doesn't want to rush into things, which is fine, you know. And I've tried my best to not put that same pressure on him and, you know, make him feel like just because your brother's been successful, you have to go down the same line. You know, with Asian families, there is that pressure of you know, either you become a doctor or you become an engineer or you become a, you know, one of those accountants or something like that. I've tried not to do that with my children. I hope they can vouch for that.
So if you don't mind me asking, what does your eldest son do? And
he did become a doctor, actually.
He did become
a doctor, funnily enough. But honestly, that wasn't pressure from me. It's something that he wanted to do, and I just supported him. You know,
I mean, whatever they want to do, they just need the support. So say your son, he didn't want to become a doctor, he wanted to become a musician. Would you allow him? Would you go along with it?
Well, put it this way, when he was actually studying, he was very much into his sports.
Right.
And alhamdulillah, he's good at his sports. And he wanted to actually go into boxing.
Okay.
So he did some amateur boxing at the time. But yeah, he wanted to go into boxing, and you know, we sort of sat down and had those conversations. Right. You know, my thing with boxing is, look, I love sports. I do sports, and I love sports, and both my boys are sporty.
Is something, you know, aggressive kind of.
I just didn't want that, because you know, you hear about a lot of, you know, sort of issues that come out of that, and impact on the brain and all of that, and I prayed so much that, you know, he would think and decide on his own accord that he's going to, you know, go for something else. And alhamdulillah, he had that choice between, okay, do I put my time into boxing? If I do, then I need to, you know, really dedicate myself and do that. Or do I go into the study? You know, he wanted to go into studying and becoming a doctor. And so therefore, medicine requires a lot of discipline. It's not easy. And alhamdulillah, he chose that. He still kind of keeps up with his sports and everything else now. But yeah, I don't think he regrets it. But
sometimes, you know, there's certain things that we do in our life we shouldn't regret.
No.
Because
Absolutely.
One thing is Allah's will.
Absolutely.
And second thing is sometimes maybe for the best that you don't get the opportunity on certain things.
Absolutely. I think that's the thing. It's Allah's will.
Like being a doctor is a noble, being a teacher, being a doctor is a noble profession that people see. You're saving people's life. Being a teacher, you educating people.
Absolutely.
So, which is really good.
Yeah. No, alhamdulillah. Because I know when I was growing up, in all honesty, at the beginning, I went through all sorts of things. First, I wanted to go into, you know, law. Then it was accounting, and then I kind of settled on teaching. So, you know, because my degree wasn't in teaching, in all honesty, it was in accounting.
As you were saying, teaching. My son's school, when he was in, not my son, my daughter, eldest daughter, when she was younger. So I used to go with her to school trips.
Yes.
And all the children know who I am.
Right.
And they used to love me for it. So one time I was sitting there with this child, and she goes to me, "Excuse me, miss, you know what, if you become when you grow up, if you become a teacher, you'll be really good." And I'm thinking, when I grow up, I'm a grown-up woman already. So it's the way she spoke, you know, when children hear other adults talking like that. So I think she picked it up from somewhere. She's asking me, and I don't know whether to laugh or whether to say something. I said, "Oh, thank you so much." She goes, "So, are you going to become a teacher?"
Oh, that's so nice.
So nice. But, you know, get you thinking that, you know, children, the way they think, is really nice and sweet.
No, it is, alhamdulillah.
So, if I go back to your childhood, what were you like?
I'm the eldest girl in my
Okay.
family. So there's 6 of us.
Okay.
And I've got an older brother, and then it's me.
Okay.
So in the time I grew up, you know, being a girl and everything else, you had to take responsibility for all the younger ones. And I guess I was that. So I was the big sister. And, you know, when our parents came over to this country, you know, they made a lot of sacrifices. It was challenging. It wasn't easy. There was racism in our time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember my mum having to constantly fight off, you know, literally chase people away in our building.
Oh, that's a shame.
But alhamdulillah, I think it made us resilient. And, you know, the thing is this, like, I think when you grow up like that, in scarcity,
Yeah,
it teaches you to value things.
of course.
It teaches you to value money, lack of money.
Yeah.
But, you know, I look at now, you know, we live in houses where sometimes there's like 2, 3 bathrooms in a house. We lived in a flat which had like 1 bathroom, 1 toilet, and there was, you know, 6 kids.
Prior to that, if you were
Yeah.
lucky,
Yeah.
you'll have a bathroom.
Exactly. I know people who
You know,
came
some
before.
people had to have
Outside.
go to the public bath
Yes.
to have their shower. You
Yes, absolutely. Or it was outside in the garden.
Outside in the garden, yes.
Yeah, we were alhamdulillah fortunate. We had one inside, but
Yeah.
it was the one. But you never complained about it.
know. No.
You know, like everything was, you know, you just appreciated it.
Exactly.
Now it's like, you know, 2 isn't enough, 3 bathrooms, you know, and then we then wonder, why is it our children don't understand, and we say, oh, you're not grateful and you're not this.
Yeah.
Well, how are they supposed to be? Because they're not without. It's not their fault. They're not without, and so therefore they don't understand what it's like to be without. So, you know, in order to learn lessons, we have to go through the experience and understand it. And, you know, the best we can do, I guess, with our children is, yes, we talk to them about it and everything else, but it's unfair to compare them to how we were.
Yeah. Someone I was talking yesterday, it was yesterday or day before yesterday, I was talking to somebody. And what he was saying, that his son used to go where he works. He's one of the owner. So he used to go with his father, and his son used to help him out. Then as he grew older, he became a bit not interested to work with his father anymore. He started playing up, you know, paying me enough, this, that, the other. So at the end, what he did was, he goes, okay then, you don't want to work with me, find a job somewhere else. So at the end, his father managed to find him a job in a restaurant. This child is born and brought up in this country, but father managed to find him a job. So the person he's working with is his relative anyway. So he said to the relative that the father said to their relative that don't allow him, don't get him to do all the work.
Okay.
Make sure he mops the floor, he does whatever he needs to do. Just because he's your relative, don't, you know, give him advantage of it. So now he does everything. The other day, father went to pick his son up from work. He could see that he's mopping the floor and, you know, whatever.
Mashallah.
When he came out, he bought a coffee for his father. So his father goes, you bought the coffee for me. It's really nice of you, but did you pay for it? He goes, of course I paid for my own money.
Yeah.
So just because it's your relative's coffee shop, I don't want you to just take the advantage of it. That kind of teaches the child that valuable lesson in his life.
Absolutely.
And I think most of the parents, we should do something like that.
I agree.
As soon as we have some kind of money or some kind of advantage, we try to, you know, with the children, we spoil them. It's the fault of the parents, I would say.
It is. I mean, sometimes, you know, as a parent, it might be your intentions might be good. But I think we need to know, and we need to think about, okay, what is it I'm trying to do in this situation, because because we've done without.
Yeah.
We are in that sort of mindset, thinking that I want to give my child everything.
True.
Because I was without.
Exactly.
But that's just spoiling them. That's not how they learn anything from
exactly.
that. Yeah, I mean, that's a wonderful example, teaching them by doing.
A lot of the time we take things for granted, especially our children. We take parents for granted. We don't do the housework. And it is important for children to learn for their life, survival of their life, to be quite honest. When my children were younger, I always got them to do things by themselves. But sometimes one parent is not enough. Both has to be on the same level.
Yes.
But if the father or the mother, they say, no, I'll do it. I don't want them to do it. So the child doesn't learn anything.
Yeah.
And they get spoiled. So I would say they should allow the child to do housework, everything, to be quite honest, at household, cooking, cleaning, to washing, putting the laundry on.
Yeah.
Everything should be done by the children, so they learn things.
Yes, I agree. I mean, it's got to be through role modeling as well. But it's not just in housework. I think that goes across the board. I mean, if we want our children to be, for example, healthy, then we also have to look after ourselves.
Of course.
And often we don't, especially mums. What we do is, like, in our priority list, we're always at the bottom. If
we never think about ourselves.
No, if sometimes we are on the list, we're at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's like everybody else comes before, and then we get to our needs. And by that time, you're tired anyway. So I just think that, on that priority list, particularly for mums, I think, you need to be at the top. Because when you're at your best, then you are able to give your best.
Exactly.
You give your best. And your children see that, mum or dad or whoever, they're looking after themselves. And so therefore, when you say to them, right, you need to eat healthy and be healthy.
True.
But you're demonstrating it.
Yes.
And similarly with everything else, we want our children to be educated, or we want them to read more, whatever it is, then we ought to need to read,
them, of course.
But we often think, no, I don't have time. Well, if you don't have time, they're going to say the same thing. They don't have time. You've got to make that time. That's the sacrifice.
Of course. And whatever the children see the parents doing, they learn from it.
Yes. Yeah.
And it is important, like you said, you demonstrate well-being, not just food-wise, but with everything else.
Absolutely. Yes.
Your mental health, your physical health, everything should be prioritized.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And if you prioritize yourself, children can see that. Yes. My parents, that's the way they brought us up.
Yes, because you show value to yourself, your children will show value to themselves.
Exactly.
Then they won't need validation from external things.
Exactly.
And I think too many children now, that's what they seek. That's why they go onto social media and everything else. It's almost like they're looking for validation from external, because they're not getting it at home and they're not seeing it at home.
Definitely.
And that's where the confidence comes from.
Especially with us Asian, like Bengali families.
Yes.
We don't get that appreciation from the parents.
Yeah.
We don't get the validation from the parents or older siblings or whatever.
Yeah.
If they do something, oh, তুই তা কিতা করছস ঠিক আছে ছবি আঁকছে আমরা এটা কই না wow you did really well appraise করি না তারারে what we do oh ঠিক আছে রাখি দাও
বাদে ফালাই দিই
বাদে বিনো ফালাই দিই right
yeah.
So এই জিনিসগুলো কিন্তু বাচ্চা তোরে disheartened করে and that kind of shows that তারা মা বাবা আমরা কেয়ার করে না তারা যখন না আমি কিতা ড্র করছি কিতা জো করছি তা যেমন আমরা আদার সাদা কাউন্টারপার্ট যারা আছে তারা কিন্তু সুন্দর ছবিগুলারে ফ্রিজে লাগার তারা অ্যাপ্রিশিয়েট করে এটারে লইয়া ডিসকাস করে যে বাচ্চা এই গুকিতা ড্র করছে খেনে ড্র করছে তখন ইউ গেট টু নো দি inside of the child.
Of course, yeah.
But when as Asian, I think we don't do that, and that's when problem lies, because they can see the other parents are supporting their child. But we don't.
Yeah, no, we do have that in Asian families. sometimes I guess it boils down to time, but also if you've grown up like that as well, because your parents have done that, you're likely to pass that on to your children. But I think this is where we need to stop. The pattern needs to break. And, if that's what you've gone through, then you want something different for your children.
Definitely.
And so therefore, if you don't change your behavior, well, nothing's going to change. It's the same thing repeating itself, and it's just, carries on. Our parents, for example, did what they had to do. Like I said, it was very demanding at that time. My mum, having to bring up 6 children, you didn't have the support.
No.
There's a saying, isn't it, that it takes a village to bring up a child.
Of course.
We don't have that village here.
No.
So you need to create that village.
True.
Whether that means...
But then again, having said that, when we were younger, আমার মনে আছে আমরা নেইবার তারারে আমরা কিন্তু চিন্তা করতাম ও মাই গড সাসা দেখি লিবা অমুক গরো সাসা দেখি লিবা অমুক গরো সাসি দেখি লিবা আমরা কোন কিছু দুষ্টামি করতে গেলে but nowadays kids they don't care, they go so what.
That's changed, but partly because I grew up in an estate in northwest London, and it was very much, I guess, Bengalis, Bangla মানুষ বরাসলা আমরা নেইবার মনে হয় আমরা বিলিঙ্গো মনে হয় 5 or 7 8 neighbors, and we used to think about who's seeing and who's not, and salam khoroj dekha gelo,
have the value and the culture.
Absolutely, but now it's different. Where I live, it's not an estate, it's houses, and you've got one person here, another person probably in like 3 streets down, and so it's not, there isn't that feel of community. It lacks that, and so you don't have that support that you require. And like you said, children have lost that respect. In fact, sometimes people are scared to say anything to a child in case they turn back and say something back to you. Sometimes they might do something back, and so people don't. And I think a lot of us are probably struggling trying to bring up children, and we feel alone, lack of support. And then it's the thing is, if something happens, the shorom lagbot khuyuna matyuna,
everything hidden under the carpet. So
but then
you're a teacher, you're a school teacher, and being a head. Do you see a lot of Asian families or children nowadays? They talk about taking them to social workers. All the issues going on. So how do you see this? How would you say that? Is it parents' fault the way they are bringing their child, or parents they don't know what's going on? Children are misbehaving. Some of the children they make stories up about their parents that they're getting beaten up because is it because in school they're feeding them information, so they just manipulating that whole story. So how would you rate that?
Because I work in an independent school, we don't see a lot of that.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah, because predominantly most of the parents that are bringing them, they're paying fees to bring their children, to the school, and so the demographics that I work with, they're mainly professionals.
Okay.
So alhamdulillah, I don't. But I know, we have had within our school where there were sort of issues going on with the child, and sort of when we investigated, we found that there was all sorts going on between parents.
Okay.
And the kids were picking that up and bringing it into school.
Okay.
And so we used to have these siblings, brother and sister in the school, and they'd be bickering all the time. And it's because that's what they saw at home happening.
Okay.
And so they just continued picking up and bringing it into school. And so, there is that factor, that going on. With regards to, and then you've got peer pressure as well. When you go up to secondary school, you're also dealing with peer pressure.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that influences how they behave. In fact, that influences quite a big time, because they say, they all of a sudden it's like your friends are much more valuable than your parents are.
True.
Right? When you get to that age, you're much more self-aware. you want to be accepted, and so you're willing to do. And sometimes that influence can come when others might say, "Oh, do this, do that," and just because they want to fit in, they'll do it. And that tends to start, and if it's not nipped in the bud, then that can just spiral out, and before you know it, the children are sort of doing more than
Definitely.
they need to.
I agree, because most of the time I have realized that children nowadays, they listen to their friends more than the parents.
Yeah.
When parents say something they
Yeah.
think is not true, or they
Yeah.
don't believe it, or they don't want to listen. But as soon as their friends say something, then yes, they are up for it. They will do it. The influence
Yeah. Yeah.
is really vast within the school and the children, amongst the friends.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
is really sad to see, because not every friends are friends.
No, but it's very difficult to.
How would you
explain
tell a child when you know that this child is a problem? How would you tell your child to not to, play with that child or be with that child?
My own child.
Parents are facing these issues.
Yeah, they are. That is a really difficult one, because at the end of the day, if they are in that same environment, they're going to see that child time and time again. And I think all you can possibly try and do is, one, talk to the child,
But you know what? Most of the parents, আমরা Bengali parents হলে আমরা কই তুমি অমুক লোকে চলতে পারতা না, কিন্তু কিতাদা চলতে পারতা না, বা ইকু বালা নাই, ইফুরি বালা নাই, বা ইফুয়া বালা নাই, ওভাবে আমরা কই দেই। বাট ফুল এক্সপ্লেনেশন দেই না কিন্তু আমরা, বা কোন কারণে ইকু বালা নাই, বা কি রিজন কিতা বুঝাইয়া তারা ইয়ে করতে হয় না। ইনস্টেড আমরা কিন্তু নিজেও রাগারাগি শুরু করে দেই।
Yeah, that is the case. And you know what, sometimes I've had that experience with my sons as well. And
what did you do at that time?
I guess, sometimes, like, there are certain situations. I remember with my older one, for example, he's gone, he'd come home and he'd discuss with me something he's done or doing or something like that. And I would then just advise him the best I can and say, look, ultimately the decision is yours. But this is what I think.
Okay.
And I think, sometimes when we try, especially when they're teenagers, and you try to tell them what to do, it doesn't go down very well.
No, it doesn't.
In fact, they become even more rebellious, even more defiant.
Of course.
That, no, I'm going to prove you wrong, I'm going to do it anyway. And sometimes, in all honesty, he's gone ahead and done, whatever he decided to do, and then learned from that.
And they say, আমরা mistake to kill learn from.
Yes.
So allow us to do a mistake, but some mistakes cannot be rectified.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if it was, serious and I knew about it and everything else, then of course, you would intervene. But if it's other things, you think, okay, I've given you my advice, but ultimately it's up to you. And then even if they go ahead and do it, so long as it's not so serious, they'll come back, and usually, my older one, he's learned from his lessons, and he's like, yeah, actually, you were right, Mom, shouldn't have probably done it, And I think, okay, fine, he's learned the lesson. It's no harm done. But yes, of course, it depends on the situation. And I think, you know what, if we know our children are doing something really serious and everything else, then yeah, we do need to,
Expertise help.
Absolutely. We're not very good at seeking help.
No.
And the thing is that we almost feel like, we've got to battle on our own. And do everything on our own. But,
যে কোনো সময় যেমন বাচ্চাতে যদি দুষ্টামি করেন বা বাচ্চাতে যদি প্রবলেম করেন, তখন ultimately goes the fault of mother.
Oh, yeah.
তোমার ফুয়ায় এটা করছে, তোমার ফুয়ায় ওরকম করছে না, যে সময় বালা কাম করেন তখন আমার ফুয়ায় এটা করছে বা ফাইন তখন। So have you faced that? তোমার ফুয়ায় এটা করছে, তুমি যা করো না, বুঝাও না।
Yes, I have. I have. And then I would turn around and, equally say something back, because I guess, You know, this is why it's so important that the mother and father are on the same page.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Even if it is that we have differences of opinions and things like that, I think we do need to be on the same page and have the same values when you're bringing up children.
Of course.
You know, and because children see through that, and they use that.
Definitely.
They'll play one off against the other.
Absolutely.
And then it leaves you in a weak point.
Yeah.
Because then what do you say? Because, you know, you might say something as a mother, and then they'll say, but dad said this, or, you know, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So it's really important that we're consistent, regardless of, you know, whether you agree or not, or you might have a slightly difference of opinion and everything else. But it's got to be, you know, consistent.
Yeah.
And I think the vast majority of us are not there.
No.
Vast majority of us, and I'll put myself in that bracket as well. I think vast majority of us are quite inconsistent.
Yeah.
And that's why we, you know, will experience those problems, especially now. I think, like I said, things are so much more demanding. Children have social media at their hands.
Yeah.
It's like social media is bringing them up. You know, sometimes we even make the mistake of younger children. I see so many younger children, like, you know, who have sort of tablets, and you know, we get them used to these gadgets so early on.
Not just that, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, just because they're not eating.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
we give them a device.
Yes.
So they play with the device. They
Yes.
watch a cartoon or whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
And then we are feeding them.
them.
They don't know how much they're eating, what they're eating.
Yes.
They just open their mouth.
It's like
and
robots.
just
Yes.
putting food inside their mouth.
Yeah.
Whether they're biting, they're, you know, chewing.
No, I know.
They don't even know what's going on.
And it's so dangerous, and I don't think we realize how dangerous it is. We just think it's harmless cartoon.
I mean, I have
or
done
whatever.
it with my
Yeah.
younger one a lot because I must admit, you know, and I regret it now.
Yeah.
But then again, like us, we were discussing earlier, that certain age, certain time, you become more, you don't know what to do with your body because you get tired, you're frustrated, you're, you know.
Yeah.
And because of that reason, I thought, okay, anything to make her happy to get her to eat the food.
Yeah.
Because one time she stopped eating totally.
Okay.
She would not eat or drink milk. So how do you feed that child?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they do play up every now and then.
Yeah.
They go through this phase,
Yes,
and
of course.
they won't eat. So she wasn't eating, she was becoming weak, and I didn't know what to do with her. So that's when I gave her the device to play with, and, you know, she started eating. She didn't even realize that she's eating.
She's eating, yeah.
And by doing that, she kind of got used to it. So afterward, it's very hard to get rid of that habit.
Yeah.
So I would say we should try. If they're not eating, it should be okay. Maybe they've got some kind of illness or something bothering them. We should seek help from the experts.
I think that's what it is. Because, you know, if you think about before the time of social media and tablets and everything else, I mean, people brought up children, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they went through some periods of time where kids weren't eating and everything else. But, you know, they didn't have those gadgets to rely on. So what did they do? They had to try other things.
Of course.
And, you know, we have that almost like it's the quick fix.
Yeah.
And it's not the quick fix. It's quite a dangerous fix.
Because it's
an addiction.
a long term.
Yeah,
impact.
because what we're doing actually was we're feeding an addiction. Because I think they found, like, you know, social media and everything else, it can be very addictive.
Yeah.
And so then when you try to take it away, the child throws a tantrum, and so what do? You give it back to them because they're throwing a tantrum, and then it's just a cycle. And then when you do want to try and control it, well, it's too late by that time.
Too late, absolutely.
So I think we do need to be a lot more proactive as parents, and that does require more energy. It requires hard work, absolutely. But that's all the more reason, I think, especially as a mother, that you need to look after yourself so that you do have the energy. You're not constantly drained. You know, sometimes some of us, I mean, you know, we're sort of constantly in that mode of, we've got OCD, like the house has to be spotless and clean. And we put so much energy into that you tire yourself out and you've got no energy for anything else. And, you know, it's okay. let it go for a bit.
Even some parents, not parents, I would say, especially mothers, when they see their child toys on the floor playing,
Yeah.
they become so obsessive.
Yes.
Tidy up,
Tidy,
you know,
yeah.
do this, do that.
Yes.
Allow them to, you know, make a mess.
Absolutely.
Allow them to play.
Yeah.
This is their home environment. They
Yes.
need to make a mess, and then learn them to tidy up
Yeah,
at the end.
absolutely.
They don't
Yes.
tidy up fully, but as
Yeah.
long as they pick things up and put it away,
Yeah.
that's how they learn things.
Yeah.
But some parents are they're so, like you said,
Yeah,
obsessed. Their house has to be
Yes.
spotless,
Yes.
clean,
Spotless clean.
people.
Yes.
And that sort of অনেক বাচ্চিন্তরে কিন্তু তারা ফোবিয়ার মতো নিয়ে গিয়ে যে আমি
Phobia,
কিছু
but-
ছাড়তাম
yeah.
ধরতাম পারতাম না আমি রক্ত পারতাম না they become very nervous
Yeah.
কোথাও গেলে they are they react they do opposite তারার গরো তারা ক্লিন রাখবো
Yeah.
because they know their mother will be
Yes.
on their case.
Yes.
But when they
yeah.
go someone else's house, they make total mess out of it.
Yeah. Because
I
they
have
have to
seen.
let it out. Yes, they have
Yeah.
to let it out somewhere.
Somewhere, exactly.
And the same thing goes with behavior sometimes. Like, you know, if you restrict children so much in one way, then when they're somewhere else, they're going to let it out because they have to. So I think it's finding a balance
Yeah.
between things. It takes time, trial and error. But, you know, inshallah, like I said, I do believe we need to role model that is quite important. And it does need to start from us.
Yeah.
So as parents, yes, you do need to look after yourself. And, you know, you shouldn't be at the bottom of the list,
No.
you know. And that's how we, you know, hopefully.
One last
Teach the
question
children.
before we leave, quick one. That a lot of people we say আমরা খালি মারে গুরুত্ব দেই মার কথা এমফাসাইজ করি বাট অনেক সময় আছে বাপ হলেও কিন্তু অনেক দায়িত্ব পালন কররা
Yes.
ফ্যামিলিতে
Absolutely.
কিন্তু বাফর দায়িত্বগুলো আমরা তো কাউন্ট
Recognize
করি
করি
না
না, yeah, yeah.
বাফরে আমরা সাইডে দিয়া ইয়ে
Yeah,
করে রাখি দিই
yeah.
বা চিন্তা সবসময় মা হলো লোকে ইয়ে করেন হাউ ডু ফিল অ্যাবাউট দিস যে বাপ হলরে আমরা প্রায়োরিটাইজ করি না বাপরে আমরা সমাজে তেমন লিয়ে মাতি না কারণ অনেক বাপ হলে কিন্তু হুনরা এটা প্রোগ্রাম দেখা
Yes, yes,
তারা আমার
yes.
কোয়েশ্চেন করবেন যে বাপ লইয়া আপনারা করেন না প্রোগ্রাম
Corona hane. Na, ita tik. No, for me, the mother and father, it's equal. Like, you know, the father, I personally believe the father needs to be more involved. Sometimes what happens is fathers are busy because they're working.
Yeah.
And so the mum ends up picking up all the pieces with regards to, you know, school runs, when the children come home and everything else. But I think the father has a responsibility, you know, when they come home. And some do, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, some
you know,
do.
I see some of our parents,
Nowadays
for
a
example.
lot of fathers do.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of, I mean, our parents, for example, yeah, most of them are professionals, but they're very much involved in, you know, the schooling, how their kids are doing at school and
Yeah.
everything else. And so, and that's a good thing. And I think they do need to be, because then children understand that both mother and father are interested in what's going on
Yeah.
with them.
And do you think there should be better parenting কোনো ক্লাস এরকম স্কুলে রান করা করা
I say, but yes, there needs to be more. Yeah, I think somewhere, I don't know who said I think it was in Malaysia. I think they say that, you know, like before people get married and have, you know, kids.
আমরা কিন্তু সময় শেষ
Oh, okay, fair enough.
জাস্ট কুইক
Okay.
ফর দি শ্রোতাদের উদ্দেশ্যে কিছু যদি
Inshallah.
আপনি কইলেন
Inshallah, you know, parents, mums and dads, I would say, like I said, prioritize yourselves. Look after yourselves, role model, and that's how children, inshallah, will hopefully pick up and, you know, learn from us as well.
Thank you, Afa, for coming to the
Inshallah.
show today.
Thank you
It was nice
for
having you
inviting.
on our show. শ্রোতা বন্ধুরা আজকে এইটুকুই ছিল আগামী সপ্তাহে নতুন কোনো গেস্ট নিয়ে আসবো আপনাদের সাথে আশা করি আপনারা সবাই ভালো থাকবেন সুস্থ থাকবেন আর